Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we are going to completely deconstruct the illusion of the modern career path. I want you to imagine you're standing at a crossroads. You're holding a map that absolutely everyone, teachers, society, your parents, insists is perfectly accurate. They tell you, if you just work hard, pick a lane, and follow the directions, your life is just going to fall into place like a perfect sequence of gears. But here's the catch. The longer you actually stare at this map, the more the ink seems to shift. The reality you experience out there simply doesn't match the directions you were given. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the invisible forces and the hidden traps that are actually steering your life.
Listen to this quote for a second. You aren't just building a life, you're participating in a massive, interconnected system of human mechanics. Think about when you get that very first real paycheck. You scroll down the stub and see the modern ritual of taxes, Social Security, Medicare, federal income, literally eating away at your effort before you can even touch a single dollar of it. That's when a light bulb goes off, right? You realize that your daily grind fits into a much, much larger systemic machine. You aren't operating independently at all. You are a component in a vast engine.
Which brings us to the ultimate question we have to answer today. Are you trading your absolute most valuable asset for a trap? See, most people are handing over their time, which is literally the only truly finite resource they possess, for a paycheck, without ever realizing they've walked straight into a psychological snare. And it doesn't matter if you sit in a cubicle, drive for an app, or if you're building a startup out of your garage. There are invisible forces shaping your reality.
All right, Section 1, the modern career trap, or the illusion of the map. Regardless of what industry you happen to be in, there are shared systemic symptoms that prove we are all operating under the exact same set of hidden rules. Just look at our collective exhaustion. Our days so often start with that classic morning ritual of caffeine. But let's be real, you aren't drinking it for actual energy. You're drinking it to block the adenosine in your brain so you can pretend those soul-crushing office fluorescent lights aren't actually giving you a massive headache. Then you experience the onset of the workday. You feel somewhat productive, but you immediately see the fruits of your labor consumed up front by systemic deductions, leaving you simply trading your precious time for whatever happens to be left over on that paycheck. These shared symptoms, they reveal exactly how the system of human mechanics operates.
Moving on to Section 2, the corporate 9-to-5, the soldier position.
Let's analyze the path most people find themselves on. The path that's framed as the absolute safest, most stable way to exist. You're promised safety, stability, and a steady climb up that famous corporate ladder. But the physical and psychological reality is entirely different. The corporate path acts almost like a sedative. It quiets your anxiety about the future by offering a steady dose of calm in the form of a salary and benefits. These are your golden handcuffs, and they convince you that you literally can't survive without them. Meanwhile, you experience what I call a slow erosion. You sit in a chair that molds your skeleton into a shape it was never, ever meant to hold, developing the dreaded tech neck. And that ladder, honestly, it's often just a series of breadcrumbing events. A tiny raise here or a minor title bump there, just to keep you hooked and checking emails at 2 a.m., prioritizing the company's survival over your own.
And then, of course, we have office politics. Now, this isn't just annoying, it's a literal playground for manipulation. You've likely encountered the white knight, that colleague who quietly helps create a problem behind the scenes, only to suddenly swoop in with the solution, basically keeping you broken and dependent on their help. Or maybe you've experienced triangulation, where a manager pulls a third person into a conflict just to make your voice feel smaller. The harsh reality check here is that the corporate machine doesn't actually want you to be a unique individual. Not at all. It wants you to be a log, straight, predictable, and incredibly easy to stack and control.
Which leads us to Section 3, the gig and creative hustle, the dopamine trap.
So, what if you reject the cubicle? Well, alternative paths act wildly differently from the corporate sedative. They function a lot more like fast-acting stimulants. Take the gig economy, for example. The promise is incredibly seductive, right? Be your own boss, choose your own hours. The rush of that instant money feels electric. But man, the come-down hits fast. You quickly realize you aren't a boss at all. You are essentially an unpaid employee of a shadowy algorithm that simply does not care if you're sick, tired, or totally burned out. You are running on a treadmill that just moves faster the more you run. The exact mechanism keeping you on that treadmill is called the variable reward schedule. This is literally the exact same psychological trap used in gambling and drug addiction. You're scrolling through an app just waiting for a high-paying ping. Because it's unpredictable, it keeps you in a state of constant limbo. The system gives you just enough attention to keep you hooked, acting as emotional clickbait for your bank account. Meanwhile, your margin for error is razor thin, and you're trading your car's value, gas, and literal physical safety for absolute crumbs until you eventually crash.
Now, for those who shift into the creative path, it's a completely psychoactive career. You feel this infinite connection as you show the world something profound, and reality just seems to breathe with you. Until it doesn't. When the trends shift, you suddenly go from being on top of the world to becoming a prisoner to a performance. Your mental health suffers in the background as you frantically scramble to please a shadowy algorithm you never actually controlled in the first place.
The main psychological trap here is audience love bombing. When you are on and the algorithm favors you, the intensity of the attention feels amazing. It's a high. But the moment the trend dies, the world goes completely cold. Creators start wondering what they did wrong, internalizing it, blaming themselves. They end up breadcrumbing their own lives, sacrificing their actual human mechanics, like their mental health and real-world relationships, just to stay relevant for the show. They're utterly terrified that if they withdraw, they'll be forgotten forever.
Section 4. Trades and entrepreneurial toll. The mechanical and the manic.
So, if the corporate world is a sedative and the gig economy is a stimulant, where does that leave us? Well, let's look at the mechanical careers, the builders, the plumbers, the electricians. The appeal here is functional, grounded, concrete value where you get to escape those shadowy algorithms entirely. Sounds great, right? But the hidden cost is a massive physical debt taken out on your own body. You are working in positions that round your spine unnaturally and keep your joints under constant, unrelenting pressure, often stuck in a coffin-like routine of manual labor.
And this brings us to a really urgent reality check. By age 50, your own personal human mechanics might literally be buckling under the weight of decades of just bracing for impact. While you aren't stuck fighting an algorithm, you are fighting a biological countdown. If you don't manage this energy and build a system that works for you, that energy is quite literally being stolen from your future self.
Now contrast that physical toll with the psychological toll of the entrepreneur. You start with this surge of almost superhuman confidence, totally believing you've discovered something world-changing and untouchable. Yet what looks like a solid business plan is often just a manic episode, a high-risk dopamine binge. You chase a goal that feels like destiny, but you are actually just burning through your entire dopamine supply in one go, risking complete emotional exhaustion, and twisting your credit score, which is really just that shadowy algorithm of trust, into a total distortion of normal reality. And the trap that keeps entrepreneurs firmly locked in is the sunk cost fallacy. Obsession completely takes over, and they start pouring more and more of their time and value into a failing idea. Why do they do this? Because the drop-off of the come-down is simply too terrifying to face. When the crash inevitably happens, it isn't just a financial loss. It is a complete emotional hollowing that can leave a person feeling empty for days or even years.
Which leads us to Section 5. The ultimate cheat code. Rigging the game back.
We've diagnosed the traps, right? We've looked at the sedatives, the stimulants, the physical debt, and the manic obsession. So how do we actually fix this? The absolute crucial point is this. Time is the only asset that matters. We have to stop explaining ourselves to people and systems that are pretending not to understand us. If your job feels like a withdrawal disguised as company culture, it's time to pull the curtain back. You must fiercely protect your time, because right now the machine is using it to fuel itself. So here is exactly how you take your power back. This is the cheat code. Step 1. Stop trading your time directly for money. You absolutely have to stop chasing the trail of crumbs. Step 2. Build actual value by mastering leverage and learning the rules of the game so you can rig it in your favor. And Step 3. Use compound interest to turn small gains into massive wins while you sleep. By executing these 3 steps, you ensure that your career provides a functional calm rather than leaving you with a constant chemical hangover. Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. Will your energy be stolen by your future self, or will you build the cheat code? Look, if this explainer helped you see the invisible gears of your own career, you're already one step ahead of the machine. Make sure to subscribe to continue leveling up your understanding of reality. And hey, let me know down in the comments, what hidden systems or psychological traps should we decode next? I read every single one. See you next time.